It's episode 2 of the Wildcast, your official podcast of the WildcastSportsReport.com. I'm Brad Allis along with Canyon Allis. Same crew from the last time. Maybe we'll let you hear some fresh voices, maybe not. Next week, though, is the start of fall camp for the Arizona Wildcats.
Can't wait.
We have a special guest star, Bart Scott is here.
Can't wait.
But no, Arizona starts the Rich Rodriguez era for real. I always, spring ball's great, signing day is great, but when that early August report date comes and all the players are in uniform and they're getting ready to go, to me that's the start of the era. Rodriguez and crew get it going. They have the pregame party with media day, but really fall camp starting next week. And there's a lot to look at. There's going to be a lot to watch. We're not allowed to watch as much as we were under Stoops and Makovic, but still quite a bit to see. I'm going to throw it out to you right now, Canyon. What are some of the things you're anxious to see, good or bad?
Well, there's, like you mentioned earlier, Brad, there's so much, with the coaching change. And really, if you look at the situation, it's not your normal coaching change. Complete renovation, talking about complete new offense, something that Arizona has never put this kind of product on the field. And same thing on defense, trying to revert to a whole new defense at 3-3-5. I'm excited about a lot. Number one, the running game. We've seen last year with the running backs, we had younger backs, but they were extremely productive at times. A lot of inexperience there. That won't be the case this year, having 2 good years as far as, I think Jenkins had a good year. We obviously saw what Carey did as a freshman. Some great stuff. Very exciting as far as the fans are concerned. Now you put in a new offense, a spread option, something that we've never seen before. And, I'm curious to see how effective it is, how the players pick up on it, how Carey, Jenkins, how they react to a different style instead of, more of a power game of running up the middle, knowing you're going to get the ball on this play and that play. Well, now it's different. Now you're running an option. The defense will dictate who gets the ball. And it'll be interesting to see how the running game is carried with such a different look to it.
I think it'll be interesting with Kadeem Carey. A lot of people thought he was a star in the making. I think a lot of people in town thought he was already a star. To me, he still had a little bit to prove by the middle of the year. By the end, I thought he should have been the number 1 ball carrier, and it wasn't. It was still Keola Antolin. But what I'm anxious to see is, can the offense elevate Carey, and can Carey elevate the offense? You don't necessarily need an All-American running back to work in this offense, but with a guy like Michael James or even Noel Devine when they were at West Virginia, having an All-American and NFL-type running back sure does help. So is Carey that guy? And can having that guy make it better? And then again, is the fact that Arizona is going to run the ball 60% of the time going to make Carey, and to a lesser extent Jenkins and the other guys, better players? So that is something that I find interesting. I think Carey, I don't know if he's an All-American, but I think he's an all-conference type back, and I think he's going to get an opportunity to showcase that sooner than maybe Mike Stoops' regime was willing to let him.
Another thing I'm interested in is, because of the expectations placed upon Carey this year, will he meet those? Will he succeed those? As far as with the new offense, there might be a little bit of stunt as far as his growth is concerned, because he's not going to have the normal offseason going from your freshman to sophomore year, because now he's kind of reverting back to his freshman year where he's got to learn a new system. So maybe he can't concentrate on as many of those things as developing his game, but rather catching up to the offense.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, because everyone's in that same boat. Daniel Jenkins is in that boat. Jared Baker's in that boat. So now it's not going to be, yes, it's going to be who can learn the offense best, but it's also going to end up being who's the best athlete. Last year, one reason Antolin, who I don't think is as talented a running back as Carey, held the job is Antolin knew the blocking assignments. He knew all the pass routes. He knew all the audibles. Well, early in the year, Carey didn't. And I've told people, they didn't believe me. In preseason camp, Carey didn't look great, didn't look bad, but you never thought, oh, well, he has to start from day 1. Now, by about week 4, it was obvious to me that Carey needed more touches. But now...
How much of that was a comfort issue?
It might have been a lot of it. And again, Mike Stoops, he tended to err on the side of upperclassmen, which is something Dick Tomey did as well. But Dick Tomey also wouldn't sacrifice a more talented player. And there were a few times, I think we saw that at the wide receiver position. Remember when the Terrells were freshmen, they could not crack the rotation because they deferred to the upperclassmen. Rodriguez won't do that because Rodriguez has no loyalty to anyone on this team. If there's a loyalty, it's going to be to the incoming freshman. Even then, Rodriguez wants to win. He wants to win now. I don't think he cares senior, junior, freshman. So as long as Carey has a basic grasp of the offense, most of who gets the carries is going to come down to not, who's been in the program longer. Jenkins has a year on him or 2 years on him, but that doesn't matter. They're all started from square one. It's who learns it the fastest, but also just who has the most talent. And I think my casual observation, or actually my longer observation, is that Kadeem Carey is a slightly more talented back than Daniel Jenkins, and maybe the potential to be a much better back than Jenkins. And I like Jenkins a lot, but never has Jenkins struck me as a 25 carry a game guy. Maybe no one is in this offense, but if there is a guy, I think it's Kadeem Carey.
Well, and I think the combination of the two will help each other succeed. Both the guys are going to get carries. Jenkins will be a refreshing change when Carey comes out, and vice versa. Different running styles, as we've seen from various teams in the past. It's really hard for defenses to adjust to two different running styles. And I think that's a bonus for U of A. Now, one thing I worry about with Carey, being a hometown kid, is high expectations placed upon him outside of the program. And I think that's something that ultimately could feed a little bit of negative press or some, people being disappointed in how he's playing, not realizing that, hey, he's coming in learning a whole new system again. And we've seen after freshman years of hometown kids, a la Kevin Schmidtke, that people get really excited when a hometown kid comes in here and makes a splash right away. Now I think Carey's a lot more talented than a Schmidtke or for any back that the Wildcats have had for a while that has made such an impact as a freshman. So I think it'll be interesting, but I do think that the Jenkins-Carey combination will end up, once the U of A offense gets settled in and once they start doing things that they want to do rather than doing things because they're learning the offense. I think that'll be a nice combination. Could be very effective.
I don't want to spend too much more time on running backs. I think we're already about 4 minutes longer than we want to. But the last guy I want to keep an eye on is, are they going to use Taimi Tutogi as an offensive threat other than a blocker? Mike Stoops and his various offensive coordinators teased us with Tutogi. We remember him vaulting, I think it was an Oregon State linebacker, and he can run over guys. They used him a little bit in the spring game, more as a receiver, but they've liked those bigger backs. Remember, they had Owen Schmidt who's now an NFL fullback at West Virginia, and you talk about change of pace. When you compare Jenkins and Carey, they're not identical, but they're similar than a Tutogi.
More finesse.
Or even a Greg Nwoko,
yes,
who is also going to play kind of that H-back, fullback position. Now let's turn to the defense, and we don't have a ton of time here, but to me, I'm still learning the 3-3-5. I have not seen a ton of it. I know the 4-3 like the back of my hand. I know the 3-4 fairly well. This is different, but the position that I want to really focus on to see how it's going to be, because I think it's the key whether this defense is going to be acceptable, good, or awful. And there's a chance it could be a bad defense. The linebacking core. They've already lost Brian Wagner. David Lopez, who wasn't going to be a factor, but it hurts their depth. They don't have a ton of athleticism there. So are some of these younger incoming freshmen going to be able to crack the rotation? C.J. Dozier is already in the program, had a full spring. You got Dakota Conwell, you got Yaman Sanders, and you got Cody Ippolito. Now, Arizona did get some good news this week. Cody Ippolito, who had a knee injury his senior year at Chaparral High School in the Phoenix area, will not gray shirt. He'll actually be able to join the team. He's probably still a red shirt, but the good news is the knee appears to be more healthy than they thought, so he'll at least be with the team. But can these guys contribute, or is the Hank Hobson-Rob Hankins combination along with Jake Fisher, and I'm not worried about Fisher. Fisher, the only thing you worry about if he lost some mobility, it appears to be he's fine after his ACL injury. What can they do? Because we all know the linebackers are very important in this 3-3-5, or are they going to have to convert some guys? Are you going to have to see a Marquise Flowers playing out of position, or Tremaine Bondurant, or maybe even bring in a bigger kid like one of the defensive ends to shore up? To me, that's kind of the key to the defense. There's a lot of guys to look at, but linebacker is something they have to shore up.
Well, and I have a couple of observations as far as that goes. One, you touched on it. The linebackers in a 3-3-5 is so important. Have you seen with the 3-4? When you take out a defensive lineman, A, it's going to put more pressure on the linebacker core in general. B, to be able to give the defense a harder read, you're probably going to want to send at least one of those linebackers or have them doing some, some action on the line of scrimmage as far as stopping the running game, forcing players, certain stuff like that. Now, as far as the dilemma you go with switching some players around, the other problem when you have 5 defensive backs on the field at once, offensive coordinators know this. They want to attack. They want to beat you up, knowing that you've got 5 of your faster and less physical guys on the field. That definitely dictates how the offense attacks you. And I think, especially you mentioned Flowers, a bigger defensive back, a physical guy. He is a player that can play at the line of scrimmage. And I think if you move him to linebacker, it really takes away the physicality of your defensive backs. If you play, and I'm just using an offense from last year, a team like Stanford that runs 2-3 tight ends at a time, and you get those guys, out 15, 20 yards deep, and you get those guys the ball, and you don't have physical defensive backs, well, you're in for a world of trouble. And I just really hope that the linebackers can step up this year. I hope Fisher has a tremendous year, leads by example, and let's hope, barring injury, that the linebacker crew can grow, and let's hope that they don't have to do as much switching around as it appears that they're going to have to do.
With just a couple minutes left in this podcast, Kane, are there any position groups that you feel really good about? Any position that you look at and say, they're fine, there's nothing wrong there?
That's a tough question because it's very hard to gauge because they're not doing the same things they're doing last year. They're running a new offense. They're running a different defense. So players in different positions aren't going to be doing the same things that they were doing last year. Now, having said that, I do think the running back group is strong now. As we know, running backs, their productivity is going to dictate off the offensive line. So that's a tough question to gauge. I think also, I think there are some defensive backs that are going to have a great year this year. Again, it's a new defense. I do like Marquise Flowers this year. I think if he stays healthy and if he can stay on top of his game and confident, as physical as he was last year, I think there's a lot you can do with him. I think you could show him at linebacker. I think you could bring him up as a strong safety on the line of scrimmage. And I think there's a lot you can do with that. But again, a lot of this is going to just depend on how quickly the players grasp what they're doing and the fact that they're doing it totally differently from last year.
Well, quickly, I feel pretty good about Matt Scott. As long as they can keep him healthy, I think he can play. And actually, interestingly enough, last year they had the most inexperienced offensive line in the country with 1 career start. This year, the most experienced offensive line in the Pac-12. Now, can they play? Are the Backus brothers healthy? Is Carter Lee's healthy? And is Fabian Zebeli going to be back on the team? It looks like he will be. But I think if those guys can come in and gel, they have the potential to be a monster offensive line. As they were starting to develop into late in the year, there's some talent there, and it'll be interesting to see if they get healthy and can gel.
Real quick, one thing to watch for: notice the difference between games 1 and 2 as far as the offensive line, and then go down the line at the end of the year and notice what they're doing in games 8, 9, and 10. I guarantee you're going to notice a huge difference, a big difference, and obviously so. I mean, having that many games underneath the belt, and then the experience factor, like you mentioned.
You've been listening to the Wildcast. A lot of football talk going to be coming up in the next few weeks as fall camp gets started. Kane and Gary should have one next week talking some more football. But for now, I'm Brad Allis for Canyon Allis. You're listening to the Wildcat Sports Report Wildcast.